getting ready for an interview for an electrolytic cell maker position, huh? Well, we've got a deep dive ready for you to help you totally crush it.
Yeah, we're going to pull from real interview questions, give you some solid career advice, and even show you how RoleCatcher can give you that extra edge using AI.
Exactly. But before we get into all those questions, I want to make sure we're on the same page.
Yeah.
What exactly is an electrolytic cell maker?
Well, they're the hands-on folks behind those super important cells,
The what?
the ones that are used in like everything. Batteries in your phone,
Right.
big chemical plants, all sorts of stuff. They design them, they build them, they test them. I mean, they even use tools like concrete mixers. It's pretty cool.
Concrete mixers. Didn't picture that. So what's the job market looking like for someone in this field?
Well, the outlook's actually really promising. It's projected to grow by 6% by 2029,
Wow.
which is faster than average, good demand, good salary potential, and lots of room to grow too.
That's great to hear. And RoleCatcher's career guide, it really emphasizes hands-on experience.
Right. Internships or apprenticeships are really valuable.
Absolutely. Those practical skills make a huge difference when you're applying for jobs.
Okay, so let's get into some of those interview questions, huh?
All right. Sounds good.
RoleCatcher's interview guide actually has a ton of great examples to help you prepare.
Right. Let's start with like a classic one. You know, the
Yeah.
what inspired you to pursue this career kind of question.
It sounds pretty straightforward,
Right.
but how do you make your answer stand out, you know?
Well, it's all about being genuine.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want a textbook definition. They want to hear your story, you know,
Yeah.
like what got you interested in science and engineering in the first place, and then what specifically drew you to this kind of technology.
I see.
Think back to a specific moment or maybe an experience that really ignited your passion for this.
Okay.
That's what'll make your answer memorable.
I like that. And hey, if you're using RoleCatcher, you can even get feedback on your answer
Right.
to make sure it really hits the mark, you know, using their AI. Exactly. The AI analyzes your response and gives you suggestions on how to, improve what you're saying and how you're saying it.
Wow, that's pretty neat. So you've aced that first question. What comes next?
Well, they're going to want to see what you know, right? Get a sense of your technical expertise. So a common question is, can you describe your experience working with different types of electrolytic cells?
Okay, so this is your time to shine, to show off all that knowledge.
Exactly, but don't just like list off different types of cells.
Got
Talk about specific projects where you actually use that knowledge, you know?
Right.
Talk about the challenges you faced and how you overcame them. They want to see you can actually solve problems, you know?
Right, so instead of just saying, I'm familiar with fuel cells, I might say something like, in a previous project, I had to work on improving the efficiency of a solid oxide fuel cell or something like that.
Exactly. And then you could go on to describe like what steps you took, what problems came up, and what
Yeah.
the results were.
Got it. And hey, if I'm, having trouble explaining all that clearly, RoleCatcher's AI can help me with that.
Right. Absolutely. It can help you structure your answer in a way that's, clear and interesting and really highlights all your achievements and skills.
Cool. And speaking of skills, safety is obviously super important in this line of work.
Oh, absolutely. It's paramount. They're definitely going to want to know that you take safety seriously.
Okay.
So a question like, how do you ensure the safety and reliability of cells during operation? That's almost guaranteed to come up.
All right, so how do I knock this one out of the park?
Well, you got to show them you really understand the safety protocols.
Okay.
Detail your whole approach, like what do you do for regular inspections? What kind of testing do you do? How do you handle maintenance procedures? And of course, you got to show off your knowledge of all those industry regulations.
Mm-hmm.
And hey, if you can think of a specific safety protocol that's really stuck with you, mention that.
Got it.
Shows you're thinking proactively.
They might even ask some follow-up questions,
Okay.
right?
Oh, for sure.
Like, what's the toughest safety issue you've ever come across? And how did you deal with it? Or something like that.
Exactly. So be ready with those specific examples of how you've implemented safety measures and how you've handled tough situations.
So we've covered like passion, technical experience, and safety. What else should I expect?
Problem solving. They want to see how you think on your feet,
Okay.
how you handle tricky situations. So a question like, how do you troubleshoot and resolve issues with electrolytic cells? That's a pretty common one.
So how do I show off those analytical skills without getting too technical,
Just walk them through your process.
Okay.
Like, how do you figure out what the problem is? How do you gather information? How do you figure out the root cause? And then what actions do you take to fix it?
Okay.
It always helps to have a good story, too. Like a time when you solved a really tricky problem, that'll stick in their minds.
Like that time I had to figure out why a whole batch of electrolyte solution was failing those quality control tests.
Oh,
And it turned out to be a faulty sensor in the mixing tank.
there you go. Perfect example.
Yeah.
It shows them you can think critically and solve problems in a systematic way.
Okay, cool. And what if I'm interviewing for a job where I'd have to scale up production? Could they ask me about that specifically?
Absolutely. They might ask something like, can you describe your experience with scaling up electrolytic cell production from, lab scale to full-scale manufacturing?
Right.
They want to see if you have the experience to handle those bigger, more complex projects.
Makes sense. What are some of the challenges that come with that transition?
Oh, lots. Think about it. You're going from a controlled lab environment to a full-blown manufacturing plant.
Right.
There's logistics, safety concerns, and you got to make sure everything's efficient and cost-effective.
Wow, that's a lot.
So be prepared to talk about those challenges and how you've dealt with them successfully in the past.
Okay, we'll do. Now, before we move on, there was something in RoleCatcher's career guide that I thought was interesting. It really emphasized the importance of staying up to date with, all the latest developments in electrolytic cell technology.
Right.
Like it even suggested going to conferences and joining industry groups and things like that.
Absolutely. This field is constantly changing, and employers want to know that you're committed to learning and growing, so they might even ask you straight up, how do you stay updated with all the latest developments and trends?
So I should be ready to talk about the specific journals I read,
Right.
the online communities I'm part of,
Exactly.
even any recent breakthroughs that have got me excited, huh?
Exactly. It's your chance to show them that you're passionate and that you're taking initiative to stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. Got to keep learning in this field.
Oh, for sure. And speaking of showcasing your knowledge,
Hmm.
RoleCatcher's AI, it can actually help you tailor your resume
Right.
and cover letter to really highlight all the right skills and experience for the job you're going for.
Yeah, it's like having your own personal resume expert.
Exactly. Super helpful, especially when you're up against a lot of competition, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, back to those interview questions. This next one seems like a good chance to talk about your teamwork skills.
Okay.
It's how do you collaborate with, cross-functional teams to develop new electrolytic cell products or processes?
Okay, good one.
Yeah,
This is where you really want to highlight like your communication skills, how you work with people.
got it.
Talk about your experience working in teams and emphasize how you can clearly communicate your ideas.
Right.
You can listen to others and work together to achieve a shared goal.
So I should be prepared to talk about specific projects where I, really worked well as part of a team.
Exactly. And don't just say like, oh, I'm a team player. Give concrete examples
Right.
of how you actually contributed to the team's success.
Like, I could talk about a time when I had to explain a really complicated technical thing
Right.
to someone from a different department,
Right.
just making sure everyone was on the same page.
Yeah. Perfect. That shows you can communicate effectively with people from different backgrounds.
Gotcha.
You can also talk about how you handle like competing priorities or even conflicts within a team.
Okay, good point. And if I'm having trouble, putting all that into words, I can always use RoleCatcher's AI to get some feedback.
Absolutely. The AI can help you highlight the most important parts of your experience and make sure you're getting your point across.
Love that. Okay, let's switch gears a bit. RoleCatcher's career guide talks about how there are like different paths you can take in this field.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could go into management, get more education, or maybe even specialize in a specific area.
Right. Lots of options.
So many paths, yeah. What are you most interested in personally?
Honestly, I'm really fascinated by all the new battery technologies coming out.
Yeah.
I think there's so much potential there for innovation.
That's awesome. And honestly, that kind of enthusiasm can really make a difference in an interview. It shows that you're not just, looking for A and Y job. You're actually passionate about the field.
Exactly.
Okay, speaking of passion, how do you handle a question like, how do you ensure the quality and consistency of electrolytic cells during production?
This is your chance to show off your knowledge of quality control.
Okay.
So don't just say you're familiar with like Six Sigma or whatever. Describe how you've actually used those methods in real projects
Gotcha.
to make sure you're producing high-quality cells consistently.
Can you give me an example of what that might sound like?
Sure. Let's say you're responsible for monitoring the electrolyte concentration in a batch of batteries, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could talk about how you use those statistical process control charts to keep track of the data
Right.
Spot any trends or problems, and then take action to keep everything consistent within the required tolerances.
Makes sense. And, if I'm not sure if I'm explaining it clearly enough, RoleCatcher's AI can help me out.
For sure, it can help you make your language more precise and make sure you're really getting that technical expertise across.
Cool. Now let's try a tougher one. How about, can you tell me about a time you had to adapt to a change in the production process?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
What's the best way to answer something like that?
It's all about showing that you're flexible and that you can learn new things quickly.
Gotcha.
Think back to a time when a new technology was introduced, maybe a procedure was updated, or a project just took an unexpected turn.
So they want to know how I handled the change and what
Yeah.
I learned from it.
Exactly. And they want to see that you have a positive attitude
Mm-hmm.
and that you're willing to embrace new challenges.
Okay.
Maybe there was a time when your team had to switch to a new type of electrolyte solution, for example.
Right.
You could talk about how you took the initiative to research the new solution,
Okay.
learn about its properties, any safety considerations, and then how you worked with your team to make the transition go smoothly.
That makes sense. Shows that I can adapt and that I'm proactive.
Fit.
Okay, now, this is a question that seems to come up a lot towards the end of interviews.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions for US?
Ah, yes.
This one always feels so important.
It is.
What are some good questions to ask?
Well, this is your chance to show that you're genuinely interested in the company
Okay,
and the role. So ask about things that are important to you.
gotcha. Like what?
You could ask about the company's culture, their commitment to professional development,
Okay.
or even about the specific challenges and opportunities of the role.
Right.
It's also a good time to gather information that will help you decide if you actually want the job, if they offer it to you.
That's a good point.
So asking insightful questions shows that you've done your homework
Mm-hmm.
and that you're thinking beyond just getting any job.
Makes sense. Okay, this has been incredibly helpful. But before we move on, there's something that's been on my mind.
Yeah.
RoleCatcher's Career Guide mentions that, working with hazardous materials is just part of the job in this field.
Right.
So how do you stay safe?
Well, safety is absolutely the top priority.
Okay.
You have to be extremely careful about following all the procedures and wearing the right protective gear.
Right.
And honestly, having a healthy respect for the materials you're working with, that's huge.
Yeah, it's not something to take lightly.
No, not at all. Your health and safety come first, always.
Yeah, absolutely. Safety first.
Mm.
So we've covered a lot about staying safe, but are there any other challenges that come to mind?
Well, the RoleCatcher Career Guide, it also mentions that the work can be pretty physically demanding.
Okay.
Being on your feet for long periods, lifting heavy equipment, sometimes even working in those, tight spaces.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely not a desk job.
Exactly. And then there's the mental side of things, too.
Oh, yeah.
You've got troubleshooting, quality control, keeping up with all that new technology.
Mm.
It can be pretty mentally taxing.
So I guess resilience and a positive attitude are pretty important, huh?
Oh, definitely. But, there are some super rewarding aspects to this career, too.
Oh, yeah. What are those?
Well, if you like working with your hands, building things, actually seeing the results of what you're doing,
Yeah,
this can be a really satisfying field.
absolutely. And knowing that electrolytic cells are used in so many different industries,
Right.
everything from energy storage to chemical production, that's got to feel pretty good.
It is. Knowing that your work is contributing to something bigger, something important,
Mm-hmm.
that's a big motivator for a lot of people in this field.
Makes sense. Okay, so back to the interview for a second.
Okay.
What about those, tricky questions? What are your salary expectations?
Oh, yeah, that one. My advice is to do your research.
Okay.
Look at industry benchmarks, salary ranges for similar jobs in your area.
Huh.
Think about your own experience and what you bring to the table.
So it's better to have a range in mind
Yeah,
rather than a specific number.
exactly. It shows that you've thought it through. You're being realistic.
Gotcha. And what about, the strengths and weaknesses question?
Oh, yeah, that one. Well, be honest, be self-aware, but also focus on your best qualities,
Okay.
Pick strengths that are relevant to the job and back them up with examples.
So instead of just saying, I'm a hard worker, I might say something like, I'm really organized and detail-oriented, and that helped me streamline the production process and reduce errors in my last job, or something like that.
Perfect, exactly. And when you're talking about weaknesses, pick something that you're actually working on improving.
Right.
Explain the steps you're taking to address it, show self-awareness, and that you're always trying to get better.
Good advice.
Yeah.
Any other, last-minute tips for really nailing that interview?
The biggest thing is preparation.
Okay.
Practice those answers, do your research on the company, plan your outfit.
Yeah, those are all good ones.
And don't forget, you've got RoleCatcher's AI in your corner.
Right.
To get feedback on your answers and how you're delivering them, it's like a secret weapon.
Absolutely. And remember, it's okay to be nervous. Just take a deep breath, be yourself, and let your passion and knowledge shine through.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So there you have it, a deep dive into preparing for an electrolytic cell maker interview.
We covered a lot of ground today.
Yeah, we did. From understanding the job itself to tackling those tough interview questions.
Now it's your turn to put it all into practice.
Exactly. Remember, this is a field with a lot of potential. The world needs skilled electrolytic cell makers to keep innovating and creating a more sustainable future.
So go out there and make it happen.
Best of luck to everyone out there preparing for those interviews.